Okay, so when we're talking about our becoming and what becoming us means, it means finding our authenticity. And what does that mean for you? Well, I can't tell you that, right? That's for you to figure out. What does being authentic means for you? And it means basically, for me anyway, not hiding the things that I'm thinking, not hiding the things that I'm feeling, not hiding who I am in the sense of speaking my truths, right? And speaking the things that you witness and the things that you see and just showing up for yourself in whatever way that looks like. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. So it could be as simple as talking to yourself. That could be showing up for yourself, right? So when we talk about our authenticity, it's just the core vibe of who you are as a person. It's your stories that make you you. It's your truths in those stories that make you you, right? Does that make sense? So when we talk about all of these readings and these spirit connections and these divine things that are happening, it's not, especially if you align with my energy, it's not all positive, but it's also not negative. Okay, I walk a very gray line. So there's a lot of positivity in the negative, and the negative is normally the push forward into the things that make the positive. So when we're talking about moving the webs and stuff like that, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not all just choices, and it's not all divine timing, because the divine don't even have timing 80% of the time. Okay, they're a lot more like us than they would like to think. And that is a whole navigation of its own. And a lot of the readers and things, the connections, the flames in this new grid, they're reading the old programming still. So a lot of the messages that come through, minus a decent wave over the last little while, it's still convoluted from what it is now to what it was. So there's a lot of things that are getting misguided and misinformed, not because it's wrong, but just because it's shifted, right? It's changed. So the perceptions of it have changed. And the leveling up, that initiation, right? It comes into a new understanding of your authenticity, because if the web's changed, right, and the grid of humanity is changed, then your soul code is changed, right? And that affects everything from everyday mundane, how you made your coffee, into the astral, spiritual, etheric realms, right? So it's all part of that web. It's all connected in that web. And when it comes to grief, or it comes to healing, or it comes to working through your trauma and things like that, you is a good girl, she agrees. It's not supposed to be fun. If it was fun, you're not going as deep as you should be. That's not to say that there isn't fun in it. I find it fun anyway. I'm a little twisted though. But I found that going through my own journey, my own adventure with this, that even in the darkest shadows that I've had, even in the trauma that I've had, even in all of the blood and the wars that I've gone through past life timelines, through this timeline, whatever you want to say, right? Is that I still find the light in it. There's still a silver lining, because at the end of the day, all of those things make up where you are in the grid right now, where you are in your spiral, if you took the spiral path, right? And there's different paths to existence. There's different soul codes to existence. So you might not be on a spiral path. You might have a different path completely apart from what I'm talking about, right? And that's why there's so many different types of flame. There's so many different types of information, because not everybody's going to align with what I have to say. Because what I have to say is raw, and it's real, and it's the soul truths that I've experienced and I've been told and I've been taught. And like I said, not everyone's going to align with those, right? And when we talk about like the shadow war and all of this stuff, it's within ourselves. So it's the duality of ourselves. That's what makes up the physical war and the etheric, right? So if you're battling your own duality, then that balance is imbalanced, right? There's no balance in the battle. And that's what the union is. That's what the shift is. That's what the change is learning both sides of yourself to the point where you cannot mistake who you are anymore. And you can't lie to yourself about who you are anymore. And even if your reality hurts you, you can embrace it, and you can find things in it that you can change, or that you can work on, or that you can focus on, or that you can understand in a different perception, right? And that's where the growth stems from. First, it's the wanting to do it. First, it's the identifying that you need to do it, and then it's the changing from there. Because each step, even if you think you're not stepping, right? Sometimes most of the time, there's huge movement in silence, and there's huge movement in being afraid, of yourself, of being afraid of others, of being afraid to face the things that we don't want to face, right? And when it comes to this entire structure of humanity shifting, the unity is what's going to hold it together. And that's why you hear all of this masculine, feminine, divine, masculine, this whole infinity braid, right, of the two, because the two make up the whole. In two there is one, and one there is one, right? So if you're feeling like things have gone really silent for you, it's because not only are you being pressurized or your conviction being tested, but it's not being tested in a pass or fail sort of way, right? It's being tested in a, where are you at with your discernment? And a lot of us have been learning spirit language, right? So a lot of you, if you're resonating with this, have been understanding how to connect with the divine in a way that, I've said this before, that you never have before, but it's deeper than that, because you're understanding how it connects to the own web of your DNA, your being, your creation, your code, right? And the codes of the soul make up your path. They make up who you are. They make up what you are, what you see, what you feel, what you hear. All of your senses are in the code of the soul, if you have a soul, because some don't. There are just empty vessels. There are the NPC people. That's a whole other thing. Basically, the energy shift from today is accepting the union that you've created, is accepting the visions that you've had of the duality of yourself, right? And stepping into that authentic, no more hiding. You might have been most likely been in a huge hermit mode. Maybe you've completely disappeared. I know I did. I vanished. Walkabouts were a thing for a reason. The divine school is a thing for a reason. And I'm in a very lucky position where I have had the capability of just completely disappearing and thinking and focusing and working with my divine team one-on-one for like months on end. You know what I mean? Like sometimes if you're capable of it, you just got to shut everything off and disappear and work on your shit. Because if you can't get your shit together, you can't move forward into any timeline and you get stuck in a loop, right? The spiral, but the loops can come out of the spiral. Nothing is written in stone. Nothing is guaranteed and nothing is written in stone. And that is a big reality that a lot of people skim over and they don't sit with in truth, because that truth is scary. Authenticity is scary. This whole energy of coming out of the closet, basically being seen, coming out of the shadow, speaking your truths, joining your duality, light and shadow, it's all one, right? So if you walk the path of the gray, or you understand what the path of the gray is, then you will understand what I mean by this duality. Because embracing that gray is what sets you free from the loops, right? It's what sets you forward, because you can open the doors with understanding of where your power lies and where it comes from. And then you'll find things like your lineages and all that stuff. That's a whole other thing. When we're talking about the mundane basis, think of it like a bad Monday. You wake up overloaded, you're tired, you don't want to do it. Everybody hates Monday. It's a similar trudge through, except with spirit. So if you're understanding anything I've said, and if you're still with me, thank you. But also, you've probably touched on this path, if not currently on it yourself. And that there's a group, right? There's a structural group in the front lines of this entire thing that is shifting this duality for humanity. And a lot of the old programming is still, everything's great, don't worry about it, thrown in with a whole bunch of horror. I consider it brainwashing. So the things that I've shifted focus on is that, yes, there's bad things happening. Yes, everyone's afraid of everything. Yes, everyone is basically one giant scared child in existence right now. And that's because it's cracking apart in the most dramatic way possible, that you can't ignore it. Especially if you're somebody that's super sensitive and tuned into it, you can't ignore it. And it's going to shake the foundations of you, of your existence, of your parts of humanity, of your thread in humanity, right? And then after that shake, that crackdown, is where you have to choose what you're going to do with it. Just like every piece of knowing. Once you get a piece of knowing, you have to choose what you're going to do with it, where you're going to take it, how you're going to form it, what you're going to make with it. And this whole section right now is all super creation, super co-creation, creation, physical creation, maybe you're an artist, or you do music, or you do something that creates, you move the energy, right? Because if it gets stagnant, it can burn you out. And the burnout isn't just like, oh, I'm tired. It's like soul crushing, can't function, massive depression, burnout. And you don't want to be there. But also, if you end up there, again, we cycle back to there's always a reason and there's a silver lining. But the reasons are never just handed to you. And we know this. If you don't know this, nothing from the divine is just handed to you until the seals are open, until you're radiating at the appropriate volume and frequency, and until you are in the correct place within yourself, not time, because time doesn't work the same for them or for us. Time doesn't run the way we think it does. And in my existence, I've had it bleed through into this reality where I don't function on regular time. And it has caused problems. It does cause problems. And a lot of people refer to it as time blindness now. And that's not necessarily a thing, in my opinion. And from what I know and my personal experience, it's more so you're just vibrating at a completely different frequency that you do not register human time. Unless you have like an appointment or it's an alarm or a calendar. Like, I have no idea what time it is 80% of the time. I rarely have any idea what day it is 80% of the time. And it's not just my brain injury. So when it comes to things like that, and you start vibrating at these frequencies, and you start shifting, and you start evolving, and you start changing, then time shifts. Your existence shifts. The universe starts showing it back to you in ways that a lot of people aren't going to understand. And it's lonely. It's very lonely. But it's necessary because the world needs people like that. The world needs people like that, and they need to hear what those people have to say, because those people are the key holders, and the key holders are the ones that shift and move and change and create and offer the keys to others. It's not that you can't get the doors, you can't get the keys, you can't touch on any of this knowledge. That's why there are people that do readings. That's why there are psychics. That's why there's spiritual community. The unfortunate part is that people have made it very hard to access that information, and that is also shifting. There's a huge wave of just people talking and saying the things they're experiencing, and saying the things that they're feeling, and saying the things that they're embracing and that they're understanding, and their perceptions of the world. And that is the biggest wave in unity and in community that is going to shift this entire existence into something different. Is it going to be instant? No. Is it going to take a lot of time? Yes, it does. But the awareness of it, and that whole tuning into the authentic frequency of you, the divine frequency of you, and doing all of that work to find that frequency. It doesn't make you higher, it doesn't make you lower, but it makes you you. And that authenticity is what the world is starving for, right? So again, that doesn't mean everything's okay. That doesn't mean your life is just suddenly organized. You're probably still a chaotic hot mess, but in that whatever, in the in that train of thought, and in that movement, it solidifies your knowing of self and your knowing of your experiences. And that knowing always comes at a price. Nothing's ever free. Nothing's ever free. There's always an exchange. We might not be talking monetarily, even energetically, but there's always an exchange. And what you're willing to pay for that knowing, what you're willing to pay for that understanding of yourself, and how deeply you're willing to go are the questions that you need to sit with and that you need to think on. Because until you can answer those, they're not going to tell you much of anything. And sometimes they'll even feed you distortion. Some of them will feed distortion to see not only where your discernment is, it could be a negative leak through. Either way, it's up to you to figure out what side is speaking to what, what's coming from where, how you're going to use it, how it was intended, and to ask the questions over that intention, right? So if you're like, oh, something feels uncomfortable, well, why does it feel uncomfortable? What did my body do? Where did my brain go? What was I doing at the time? Was that for my most high alignment? Was that for my best interest? Why did they tell me that in the first place? Why did that come into my head? Why did it make me feel this way? It's not overthinking. What it is mapping. It's not even analyzing. It's understanding your connections to yourself and your own creation core. Afternoon thoughts. So that's the download for right now. I hope that made sense to somebody. Thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. If you did, cheers.